This is absolutely important, guys, and it basically applies to every possible metric when it comes to learning and implementing and basically diving into the different areas when it comes to doing action. And so in today's video, guys, I'm going to talk about first principle thinking. And so what is first principle thinking? Now, first principle thinking is popularized or made popular by a man known as Elon Musk. And so if you guys literally go on YouTube right now and search first principle thinking, then most likely you'll already see a video of Elon Musk and basically talking about what it is. So in this video, guys, I'm going to define what first principle thinking is at its essence and basically oversimplified, and how you can basically practically implement that style of cognitive processing and understanding towards your career and perhaps business life. And so what is first principle thinking? I want you guys to understand that when it comes to learning, fundamentally speaking, there's two specific parts of how one acquires information. Now, this philosophical approach is known as, if I say it correctly, is empiricism. And so that is the idea, and I believe it was fundamentally popularized by Plato, is that one learns by gaining experience. And basically he uses Plato's cave analogy as an example. You guys can basically look it up yourself, but he basically explains that the majority of us in our lives, we live in some type of analogy. So every type of belief system you have currently structured for yourself, every type of prior information about society and religion and pre-constrained ideas and other types of opinions, I guess, they are basically driven down by either two things: analogies or first principles. And so what is the issue? Now, analogies is basically what the 99% of people acquire their type of information from, or in that sense of how they empirically learn and process some type of information. Now, analogies can be wonderful. Analogies we see in movies, we see them in literature, in religious literature, we see them in storytelling, we see them in, entertainment. Analogies are great, right? I'm not trying to undermine the point of analogy, but my point is that your approach when it comes to business and career, first principle is a tool that not only Elon Musk applies to his cognitive learning framework, but it's a tool that he applies when it comes to starting and building his business empire. And as we know, he is absolutely successful. And so if you're not learning from analogies, right? And so analogies are photos, they're opinions, they are media streamed information. It's when we read news, it's when we listen to the radio, it's when we hear from other people. The issue with analogy at its core is that it's because it's been sourced down by multiple, I would say, inconsistent mediums. The issue is that the more you are inconsistent with funneling through the source or the type of information, the more you derail yourself from the truth. And let me repeat that. The more inconsistently you are processed with information, the more you derail yourself from the truth. And so, if that is analogy, what is first principle thinking? And now, first principle thinking, I want you guys to understand it as like a physicist, like someone who, is an engineer or a physicist. And a physicist, what do physicists do? Physicists are people who study the core build-ups or the core building blocks of certain social constructs. So if it's, for example, business, Elon Musk building a rocket, then what Elon Musk did, and hence how he applied first principles, he fundamentally broke down the constructs of a rocket ship. He literally read books and studied and understood what were the specific things that made up a rocket, and he basically divided them into, let's say, specific sections, and from there he applied his, I would say, his knowledge in understanding how much each part cost, and eventually he minimized the cost, and therefore he was able to build rockets that were not only like 5 times cheaper, but as well as 5 times more powerful. And so the same thing, I want you guys to apply first principle thinking in whatever type of business you're doing. Now, for example, if you are, I don't know, an accountant, and you would like to, learn and study about the banks and the economies and how money works, like the way you look at first principles thinking is you have to figure out who the founding father is. Like, where did it originally come from? At its origin, how was the economies established? Now, we can look at Adam Smith, we can look at the founder of macroeconomy, which is essentially Adam Smith, and other founding fathers within that specific realm. But we would look at them and basically study their origin and how they have basically fundamentally created the economy. And that is essentially the first principle thinking. And so specifically, guys, if you are within the online course, when it comes to content creation, I want you guys to first principle understand, and it is something that I'll definitely explain, of how the algorithm of videos work. So if you want to become a content creator, a first principle thinking approach is to understand what are the first principles of content creation, and then you figure out, okay, it's videos. And so what are the first principle thinking of popular and viral videos? And then you would look at the algorithm. And then you ask yourself, what are the first principles of the algorithm? And so if you study the first principles of the Instagram algorithm, for example, then you, for example, find out that some of the first principles of what make up the algorithm are perhaps engagement and social network. And maybe watch time, average watch time, or whatever not. So this entire first principle thinking approach, which I tried my best to oversimplify, is a methodology that a lot of hyper successful people apply. And it's something that you can literally apply and try it right now. And I guarantee you guys that by applying first principle thinking, you'll definitely be a step ahead of people who acquire information or learn essentially from analogies. I'll see you guys in the next video.